Welcome to the Sleep Outpost. If you enjoy drifting off to sleep with stories like this, hit subscribe so you never miss a new one. Now, settle in, take a deep breath, and let tonight's journey begin. The shuttle drifted in silence across the final stretch of open space, its engines long since powered down to a whisper. Through the forward viewport, a single point of light grew steadily brighter against the velvet darkness. The signal tower, perched at the outermost boundary of the Kepler Sector, where charted space gave way to the gentle unknown. You watched from the passenger seat as the tower slowly revealed itself. It was a slender structure, rising like a silver needle from a small asteroid, its surface catching the faint glow of distant suns. Soft blue lights pulsed along its length in a rhythm so slow and steady it could have been breathing. Around it, the stars stretched out in every direction, unhurried and infinite, each one a tiny lantern hung in the quietest room you had ever known. The shuttle's computer chimed once, a single, soft tone, to announce the final approach. You felt the gentlest of decelerations, like a hand pressing lightly against your chest, and then even that faded away. The docking procedure was automatic. There was nothing for you to do but settle deeper into your seat and watch. Let your shoulders drop just a little. There is no rush here. Everything moves at the pace of Starlight. The tower's docking port opened like a flower unfolding in slow motion, petals of polished metal drawing back to reveal a warmly lit corridor beyond. A soft amber glow spilled out into the darkness of space, and you could already feel the warmth of it, even through the hull of the shuttle. This was to be your home for the next rotation, a quiet posting at the edge of everything, where your only job was to listen. The shuttle settled into the dock with barely a sound. A series of gentle clicks confirmed the seal, and then the hatch opened, releasing a breath of recycled air that smelled faintly of cedar and ozone. Someone, long ago, had programmed the environmental systems to produce that scent, and no one had ever thought to change it. It was a small kindness, a reminder that even out here, at the farthest reach of human presence, someone had thought about comfort. You gathered your things slowly, a small bag, a worn book, a thermal blanket you had carried through 3 previous postings. The corridor beyond the hatch was narrow but welcoming, its walls lined with a soft material that absorbed sound and reflected the amber light in gentle waves. Your footsteps were almost silent as you walked. At the end of the corridor, a round door stood open, and beyond it, the main observation room waited. You paused at the threshold, letting your eyes adjust, letting yourself arrive not just in body but in spirit. There was no hurry. The tower had been here for decades, quietly doing its work, and it would continue long after you moved on. For now, it was yours. Breathe in slowly, hold it for just a moment, and let it go. You stepped inside. The observation room was circular, its outer wall made entirely of polarized glass that curved from floor to ceiling. Through it, the universe presented itself without apology, a panorama of stars, nebulae, and the soft, diffused glow of galaxies so distant they appeared as smudges of light against the dark. In the center of the room stood the operator's console, a simple desk of brushed metal, its surface clean and uncluttered. A single screen displayed a gentle cascade of data: signal strength, relay timing, atmospheric readings from the asteroid below. Everything was green. Everything was calm. A small lamp on the desk cast a pool of warm golden light that barely reached the edges of the room, leaving the periphery in a comfortable twilight. You set your bag down beside the chair and let your gaze travel across the console. The previous operator had left everything in perfect order. A note, handwritten on actual paper, sat beside the keyboard. Quiet shift, towers in good shape. Enjoy the view. You smiled and tucked the note into your pocket. The chair was ergonomic and deeply cushioned, designed for long hours of comfortable stillness. You sank into it and felt the material conform to your shape, supporting every part of you without effort. It was the kind of chair that invited you to stay, to settle, to let the weight of the journey here dissolve into its fabric. Let your body relax into whatever surface supports you now. Let it hold you the way this chair holds the operator. You don't need to hold yourself up anymore. Through the glass, a nebula dominated the view to your left, the Aurelia Cloud, as the old charts named it. It was a vast, slowly churning mass of hydrogen and helium, lit from within by young stars just beginning their lives. Its colors shifted imperceptibly between deep violet and soft rose, like a sunset that would take 10,000 years to complete. You could watch it for hours and never see it change, yet somehow, each time you looked away and looked back, it seemed different. To your right, the stars of the inner Kepler sector formed a dense river of light, each point steady and unwavering. This far from any planet, there was no atmosphere to make them twinkle. They simply shone, patient and eternal, asking nothing of you. The tower systems hummed softly beneath the floor, a low, constant vibration that you felt more than heard. It was the sound of the relay doing its work, gathering signals from deep space probes and outpost beacons, amplifying them, and sending them onward toward the inhabited worlds. A gentle pulse in the great network of human communication, steady as a heartbeat. Every hour on the hour, a soft chime would sound, 3 ascending notes like a tiny bell choir, to mark the completion of a data ping cycle. The chime was not urgent. It required no response. It was simply the tower saying, in its own quiet way, all is well. You leaned back in the chair and let the hum and the starlight wash over you. This was the night shift, and it stretched out before you like a calm sea, unhurried, untroubled, full of nothing but gentle time. The first hour passed like water flowing over smooth stones, quietly, effortlessly, without leaving a mark. You spent it familiarizing yourself with the tower's rhythms, learning the particular quality of its silence. The environmental panel showed a steady 21 degrees, humidity at 45%. The air moved in gentle currents, circulated by systems so quiet they might as well have been natural breezes. Every now and then, you caught a faint trace of that cedar scent, carried on a current that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The signal relay's display scrolled its data in a slow, continuous stream. Numbers drifted upward on the screen like bubbles rising through still water. Signal strength, optimal. Relay timing, synchronized. Power reserves, full. Each reading was a small confirmation that the universe, at least in this tiny corner, was functioning exactly as it should. Take a slow breath now. Feel the air fill your lungs gently. There is no urgency anywhere near you. You notice the small details that made the tower feel lived in despite its remoteness. A row of small succulents sat on a shelf near the glass, their thick leaves a deep green against the starlight. Someone had been tending them, the soil was moist, and one had produced a tiny flower, pale pink, no bigger than your thumbnail. These plants had traveled farther from Earth than most humans ever would, and here they were, quietly growing in their little pots, unbothered by the vastness outside. On another shelf, a collection of small stones had been arranged in a neat line, polished river rocks, each one a different shade of gray and brown. They must have come from Earth, carried here by some previous operator as a reminder of weight and gravity and the solid ground of home. You picked one up and felt its smoothness in your palm, its gentle coolness, and then set it back in its place. The console chimed 3 soft, ascending notes, the first hourly ping. You glanced at the screen and watched the data confirm what the chime had already told you. Everything was working. The signal had been sent, received, and passed along. Somewhere far away, someone's message had traveled through this tower on its way to someone else. You didn't know what the message said, and it didn't matter. Your job was simply to be here, to watch over the process, to keep the quiet machinery of connection running smoothly. Through the glass, the asteroid field to the south caught your attention. Dozens of small rocks drifted in a lazy orbit around a slightly larger one, their surfaces catching starlight and releasing it in soft glimmers. They moved so slowly that you had to watch for several minutes to perceive any change at all. It was like watching clouds, but even more peaceful, no wind to hurry them, no weather to disrupt their ancient paths. You let your gaze soften and simply watched. The rocks turned, the nebula glowed, the tower hummed, and the stars, as always, held their positions with infinite patience, asking nothing, offering everything. As the second hour began, the tower rotated slowly on its axis, a programmed movement so gradual that you only noticed it by the shifting position of the Aurelia Cloud. What had been to your left was now drifting upward, and a new vista was opening to your right. The Driftwood Nebula, a long, sinuous formation of gas and dust that stretched across the sky like a river seen from very high above. The driftwood was quieter than the Aurelia. Its colors were muted, mostly amber and pale gold, with threads of deeper bronze winding through its length. It was an older formation, its stars already well established, their light steady and warm. Gazing at it felt like sitting beside a fire that had been burning for hours, reduced to its deepest, most sustaining embers. The polarized glass adjusted automatically as the view shifted, softening the brighter points of light to comfortable levels while allowing the subtler details to come through. You could see the fine structure of the nebula now, delicate filaments of gas, barely visible, stretching between the denser regions like threads of silk. They caught the light and held it, glowing with a warmth that seemed impossible for something so vast and so far away. Let your eyes rest. You can close them if you like. The images will stay with you, the amber light, the golden threads, the quiet warmth of ancient stars. The tower's environmental systems shifted slightly in response to the rotation, adjusting the light inside the observation room to complement the view outside. The amber of the desk lamp deepened just a fraction, and a secondary light source, built into the base of the glass wall, began to emit a soft, warm glow that mimicked the nebula's palette. The room felt like the inside of a lantern, glowing softly in the midst of the dark. You reached for the thermal blanket you had brought and unfolded it across your lap. Its weight was comforting, not heavy, but present, like a gentle hand resting on your legs. The fabric was soft and slightly textured, and you ran your fingers across it idly as you watched the nebula drift. On the console, a small notification appeared. Incoming relay packet, Outpost Meridian, auto-processing. You watched the data scroll by, a routine transmission, maintenance logs from a research station 3 light-years away. The tower handled it without any intervention, receiving the packet, boosting its signal, and sending it on its way. The whole process took about 30 seconds, and then the screen returned to its gentle, scrolling calm. The second chime sounded. 3 notes, soft and clear, rising like soap bubbles through still air. All was well. All had been well for a very long time, and all would continue to be well for a very long time to come. That was the nature of this place, a pocket of stability at the edge of the known, tended by the quiet diligence of simple machines and the unhurried attention of whoever sat in this chair. You let your head rest against the back of the chair and felt your breathing slow to match the rhythm of the tower's hum. In and out, like the signal pulses traveling through the relay, like the light traveling from the nebula to your eyes. Everything here moved at the same gentle pace, and you were a part of it now. The galley was a small alcove off the main corridor, just a few steps from the observation room. You rose from the chair, slowly, unhurriedly, and walked the short distance with the blanket still draped over your shoulders. The galley held a simple beverage station, a warming unit, and a small table with 2 chairs, though only one was ever used at a time. The tower was a solo posting, 1 operator per rotation, 1 quiet witness to the edge of space. You pressed a button on the beverage station and listened to the soft whir of the heating element as it prepared a cup of herbal tea. The blend was chamomile and lavender, pre-stocked and chosen specifically for the night shift. Someone in the supply chain had understood what this posting needed. While the tea brewed, you looked out the galley's small porthole. It showed a different angle than the observation room, a view straight down toward the asteroid's surface. The rock was a muted gray, pocked with ancient craters that had been softened by millennia of micrometeorite dust. In the low, slanting light of a distant sun, the surface looked almost soft, like snow that had been undisturbed for a very long time. The tea was ready. You wrapped your hands around the cup and felt the warmth seep into your fingers, into your palms, traveling up your wrists and into your arms. The first sip was gentle and slightly sweet, with a floral note that lingered on the back of your tongue. Let the warmth of this image settle into you. Feel it in your hands, in your chest, warm and quiet and safe. You carried the tea back to the observation room and settled into the chair once more. The Driftwood Nebula had shifted further into view, and now you could see its full length, a vast, curving river of light that seemed to have no beginning and no end. At its thickest point, it was brighter than the surrounding starfield, casting a faint, diffused glow that you could see reflected in the polished surface of the console. On the shelf beside the succulents, you noticed a small music player that the previous operator had left behind. You picked it up and scrolled through its contents, a collection of ambient recordings, ocean waves, forest rain, wind through bamboo, and one labeled simply Tower Harmonics. A recording, you realized, of the signal tower's own electromagnetic emissions, translated into audible frequencies and layered into a gentle, evolving drone. You selected it and let it play at the lowest possible volume. The sound was barely there, a soft, deep hum with overtones that shimmered and shifted like light through water. It blended with the tower's natural vibration until you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. The room filled with a warmth that was not temperature, but texture, the sound equivalent of the blanket across your lap, present and comforting without demanding attention. The third chime sounded, and you barely noticed it. It had already become part of the rhythm of this place, as natural as a heartbeat, as expected as the next breath. By the fourth hour, you had stopped thinking about the shuttle that had brought you here. You had stopped thinking about the rotation schedule, about the next operator who would take your place, about the resupply shipment that was due in 3 weeks. The past and the future had become very quiet, and the present had expanded to fill the entire room. This is what the deep quiet felt like. Not emptiness, the opposite of emptiness. A fullness so gentle that it did not press against you, but simply held you the way water holds a drifting leaf. The tower hummed. The music player breathed its slow harmonics. The nebula glowed, and you sat in the center of it all, perfectly still, perfectly held, needing nothing. Let yourself feel this stillness. It doesn't require effort. It doesn't require thought. It is simply here, the way the stars are simply there. You don't have to reach for it. Just let it reach for you. The signal relay processed another packet, this one from a deep space probe, unmanned and automatic, sending back measurements of stellar wind density from a region so remote that its data would take 6 months to reach any human analyst. The tower received it, amplified it, sent it on. A tiny thread in the vast web of knowledge that humanity had spun across the galaxy, each thread maintained by towers like this one, each tower tended by someone like you. You watched the data scroll and felt a quiet satisfaction, not pride exactly, but something gentler. A sense of participation, of being useful without being busy, of contributing to something vast and important through the simple act of being present and attentive. The stars outside had not moved. They never would, not in any way you could perceive. And yet the view was different from moment to moment. Because you were different from moment to moment, your eyes adjusting, your attention shifting, your awareness deepening. The same stars, but seen with gradually softening eyes, and so they seemed to grow warmer, closer, more intimate with each passing minute. The fourth chime sounded, and this time you felt it in your body before you heard it, a gentle vibration that traveled up through the chair and into your spine, arriving as sound only after it had already arrived as sensation. 3 ascending notes. All is well. All is quiet. All is exactly as it should be. Your breathing had slowed without you noticing. Deep and even like the tide of a very calm sea. Your hands rested on the blanket in your lap, fingers uncurled, palms open. Your shoulders had released their last traces of tension somewhere during the 3rd hour, and now they rested at their natural position, supported by the chair, supported by the quiet. The tower continued its slow rotation, and now the view shifted again. The Driftwood Nebula slid gracefully toward the upper edge of the glass, and in its place, a vast, clear field of stars emerged, the deep reach, as the navigators called it, a corridor of space so empty and so dark between the star clusters that the individual points of light seemed to float in pure, undiluted darkness. Here, the stars were sparse but vivid. Each one burned with its own particular color, some white, some faintly blue, some with a warm yellow tint that reminded you of afternoon sunlight on Earth. Without the competition of nebulae or dense star fields, each light stood on its own, distinct and individual, like notes in a very slow, very simple melody. The polarized glass darkened slightly in response to the changing view, and the observation room grew dimmer. The desk lamp's golden glow became the dominant light source, casting soft shadows that pooled in the corners of the room like dark water. The effect was deeply intimate, as if the universe had drawn the curtains and left only this small circle of warmth for you to rest in. Your eyelids are growing heavier now, and that is perfectly fine. Let them rest at whatever level feels natural. Half open, barely open, or gently closed. The story will continue either way, carrying you along like a current carries a boat with no particular destination. You sipped the last of your tea and set the cup aside. It made a soft sound against the desk, barely a sound at all, more like the memory of a sound, and then the room was quiet again. The music player had reached the end of its loop and begun again from the beginning, and the transition was so seamless that you could not have pointed to the moment it happened. On the console, the signal strength readings had shifted by a fraction of a percent, a normal fluctuation caused by the slow rotation of the asteroid, which occasionally placed a thin ridge of rock between the tower's antenna and one of its partner relays. The system compensated automatically, adjusting its transmission angle by a degree or two, and the readings returned to their baseline. It was the kind of event that required no intervention, no concern, no thought. The tower knew what to do. It had always known. You let your gaze travel slowly across the deep reach, following the scattered stars from left to right, giving each one a moment of attention before moving on. There was no hurry. There were always more stars, and they would always be there, patient and luminous, waiting for you to notice them. Time here did not pass the way it did in other places. It did not tick forward in urgent increments, demanding to be counted and accounted for. Instead, it spread out like a lake, wide and still, its surface unbroken, its depth immeasurable. You could not tell whether the 5th hour or the 6th had arrived, and it did not matter. The chimes marked the intervals, and between them, time simply was. The tower's hum had become so familiar that it was no longer a sound but a texture. The texture of this place, of this moment, of this particular quality of being alive and present at the edge of explored space. It held you the way gravity holds a planet in its orbit, gently, invisibly, without effort. You are so deeply relaxed now, every muscle has released its holding. Every thought has slowed to a drift. You are not falling asleep, you are settling into rest, the way snow settles on a quiet field, each flake finding its place without effort or intention. The succulents on the shelf caught a beam of nebula light and seemed to glow from within, their thick leaves translucent at the edges. The tiny pink flower had opened slightly more since you last looked, or perhaps your eyes had simply grown more attentive. Either way, it was beautiful in its smallness, a quiet miracle of biology persisting in the most unlikely of places. The signal relay processed another burst of data, a series of navigation updates for automated cargo ships traveling the outer lanes. The information was routine, the kind of data that kept the infrastructure of human expansion running smoothly and invisibly. Ships you would never see, carrying supplies you would never touch, guided by signals that passed through this tower and vanished into the vastness. And yet each one was a connection, a thread, a reminder that even here, at the edge, you were not alone. The chime sounded again. You felt it first in your feet, then in your chest, and finally in your ears, 3 rising notes, each one a little softer than the last, as if the tower were whispering rather than speaking. All is well. All is quiet. All is held. Your blanket had settled more completely around you, and you realized you had drawn it up to your chest at some point without noticing. Its weight was perfect, enough to feel grounded, not enough to feel confined. You adjusted it slightly, pulling one edge up to your chin, and let the softness of the fabric rest against your skin. The deep reach continued its slow parade of solitary stars. Somewhere among them, you knew there were worlds, some mapped, some only suspected, some entirely unknown. Worlds with their own skies and their own quiet nights, their own slow hours, their own moments of stillness. The universe was full of such moments, and this was one of them. Yours. The observation room had become a cocoon of soft light and softer sound. The desk lamp glowed with the warmth of a candle. The music player's harmonics had deepened to something you felt more in your bones than heard in your ears, a low, sustaining resonance, like the sound the earth might make if you could press your ear to its very core. Your eyes were heavy now, pleasantly heavy, like curtains drawn against a bright afternoon. Through the narrow slits of your vision, the stars had softened into gentle blurs of light, not sharp points but warm, diffused glows, each one surrounded by a halo of its own making. The universe had gone soft at the edges, and you let it. There is nothing left to do, nothing to check, nothing to fix, nothing to worry about. The tower is running perfectly. The signals are flowing. The stars are steady. And you are here, resting in the deep, warm center of a quiet that has been waiting for you. Your breathing had become the slowest, deepest rhythm in the room, slower than the tower's hum, slower than the rotation of the asteroid, slower than the drift of nebula light across the glass. Each inhale was a gentle tide coming in. Each exhale was a gentle tide going out. And between them, a moment of perfect stillness, like the pause between one wave and the next. The next chime came and went, and you received it not as sound, but as feeling, a gentle pulse of warmth that traveled through you and was gone, leaving only peace in its wake. The tower was speaking to itself now, maintaining its rhythms independent of your attention, freeing you to drift. Your thoughts had slowed to a crawl, no longer sentences, but images, impressions, fragments. The amber glow of the lamp, the weight of the blanket, the scent of cedar. The smooth surface of the river stones on the shelf. Each one a small anchor, keeping you in this place, in this comfort, even as your mind began its slow, natural descent towards sleep. The stars held their vigil outside the glass. They had been shining for billions of years, and they would shine for billions more, and they asked nothing of you, no attention, no effort, no response. They simply shone the way you simply breathed, the way the tower simply hummed. Everything here was simply being, and being was enough. Let yourself go now. Let the weight of everything settle. You are held by the chair, by the blanket, by the quiet. You are held by the gentle hum of the tower and the distant light of the nebulae. You are held by the deep, ancient patience of the stars. The tower turned on, turning slow above the dust and stone of its little asteroid. Its lights pulsed their unhurried rhythm, blue, soft, steady, like a sleeping breath made visible. The relay continued its work, gathering whispers from the void and passing them gently onward, a keeper of connections in the quietest corner of the sector. Inside the observation room, the operator rested. The blanket rose and fell with each long, slow breath. The desk lamp still glowed, casting its small circle of warmth. The cup of tea sat empty on the desk, a faint ring of amber at its bottom, already cooling. The succulents stood their quiet watch on the shelf, their small leaves drinking in starlight. The river stones lay in their neat row, still carrying the memory of water. The music player had reached its deepest register. A tone so low it was more vibration than sound, more feeling than hearing. It moved through the room like a current through deep water, touching everything gently, disturbing nothing. The air was still and warm, scented with cedar and lavender and the faintest trace of machine oil from the relay systems far below. Through the glass, the universe continued its vast, unhurried performance. The deep reach gave way, in the tower's rotation, to a new vista. A cluster of young stars wrapped in a cocoon of luminous gas, their light too new and too gentle to cast shadows. They glowed with a soft, pearlescent radiance that filled the room with a light that felt almost like moonlight, almost like dawn, almost like a memory of warmth you couldn't quite place, but knew was yours. You are sinking now, deeply and peacefully, into the softest rest you have known. The story continues around you, but you don't need to follow it. Let the words wash over you like warm water. Let the images dissolve into color and light and warmth. Let the sounds become one sound, the sound of deep, untroubled quiet, going on, without end. The chime sounded, barely audible now, more a shimmer in the air than a tone. 3 notes, rising and fading, like the last light of a sunset being absorbed into the deepening blue of evening. All is well. All has always been well. All will always be well here at the edge, where the signals travel and the stars keep their counsel and the tower hums its one, continuous, lullaby note. The operator's hands rested open on the blanket. The rhythm of breath was deep and even and slow, so slow now that the pause between each exhale and the next inhale had lengthened into a small eternity, a little pocket of absolute stillness within the larger stillness of the room, within the vast stillness of space. Nothing moved quickly here. Nothing needed to. The tower turned. The signals flowed. The stars burned with their patient, ancient fire. And in the warm center of it all, in a chair designed for comfort, wrapped in a blanket that had crossed the distances between worlds, the operator drifted down and down and down into the deepest, most peaceful rest that the edge of the Kepler Sector had to offer. The night stretched out ahead, long and quiet and full of stars. There was nowhere to be, nothing to do. Only this moment and the next, each one identical in its perfect calm, each one a small, warm room in the infinite house of night. Rest now. The tower will keep watch. The signals will flow. The stars will shine. And you will sleep deeply and well, cradled in the hum of the last signal tower on Kepler's edge, where the universe is quiet and the quiet is yours. Asleep. Asleep. Asleep.